Hello and welcome. We'll begin in just 1 minute. Hello, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Virtual Connect. I'm Angela Thomas, Director of the Stanford Executive Program. Excuse me. And on behalf of all of us here at Executive Education at Stanford Business School, we are so thrilled that you have joined us today and that to hear from this wonderful, incredible panel of women leaders. It is with great pleasure that I now get to introduce our panel moderator, Stanford Graduate School of Business lecturer in organizational behavior, Melissa Jones Briggs. Melissa, thank you so much for being with us today. We are so happy to have you in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you all for joining us. This is a very powerful group. Hello, thank you for being with us. On campus, I co-instruct a course called Acting with Power with a fantastic teaching team in the MBA program. I also teach in the flagship executive education program, among some others. I specialize in power, presence, and creativity topics, as well as inclusive leadership practices. We're going to dive into some of that today with some very special panelists. I'm an affiliate at the Clayman Institute for Gender Research here on campus, and in the UK, I serve as an associate fellow for the Oxford Character Project, that's at the University of Oxford, looking at responsible performance in leadership. I started my career, though, as a teaching artist in New York City before coming west to Stanford. And when I'm not on campus teaching, I spend a lot of time in the UK, where my family is. And I'm joined by a very global group, too. Today, I'd like to introduce you to three women, three of our alums, who are going to be sharing about their learning journeys, their leadership experiences. Vanessa, hi, Disha, Hazel, thank you for being here with us. We are so curious about the challenges as well as the triumphs that you faced in your career journey. We're curious, too, about your early career and your growth, as much as the actual success that you're enjoying now. And as faculty on GSB, I speak for my colleagues. We are all in your corner. We're all really happy to know you. I'm happy that everybody else will get to know you here too. So I'd like to introduce everybody watching to Hazel Hu, President at Permasteel, Vanessa Alcala, Strategy Counsel in Greater China for the H&M Group, and Disha Matani, who's an independent entrepreneur. Now, I'd like to hear each of your voices. Would you please share a brief understanding with us of your work, your career path? We'd love to hear a bit about that before we dig into some of these other questions that we've prepared. Hazel, would you kick it off?
Sure. Thank you very much, Melissa. First of all, it's so good to see you since our having your class in 2019. I still remember Acting with Power. That is one of my favorite class. Thank you. And it's really honored to be on this panel. Hi, everyone. My name is Hazel Hu, and I'm the founder and president of the Permasteel. And we are the import and export company, and we are also the wholesale and distributor specialized in the barbecue grill, patio cooler, outdoor heaters, and some other outdoor products. We sell our product to all the major retail. I came from China in 1999 for my big American dream. And I received my master's degree in human and organizational development. And I formed the business in 2003. Actually, this year marks our 20th anniversary. And now I'm based in the Los Angeles. Our office and warehouse is in the Pomona, California. We are the exclusive license partner for Camel brand. And also, I'm very proud that our Permasteel patio cooler is also recognized as a top brand in all the e-commerce channels now. Thank you. Thank you. It's really an honor to be here.
Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Melissa and the SEP team for inviting us to this fantastic conversation. It's always a pleasure to have this type of conversations with fellow female classmates, as it always gives another new perspective and new energy to our everyday life and everyday work. I have over 20 years experience in the omni-channel retail space, mostly in a design and supply chain. I've been working for the company for more than 15 years, and I am actually based in China, Shanghai, but I'm originally from Bolivia and European parents. So really multicultural, perspective into my life and my work. What else can I say? I have joined SEP in 22, just at the final of COVID, and always have great memories of that amazing time in my life, and always cherish talking, going, or discussing or meeting anything that has to do related to SEP and GSP team. And finally, on the personal side, I'm married and have 2 great kids, and we all live in China, although with international responsibilities and international travels. Thank you so much, and I guess we have Disha to pass over.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, and it's an absolute honor to be in this panel with such amazing, talented women. It's almost like a dream, and I think some part of GSB is what enabled this. I live in the Bay Area and with my husband, and I have a 10-year-old son, but I grew up in India, and I fell in love with entrepreneurship early on because I saw my father build his business from literally nothing. And the other emphasis in our household was on education. So that's what led me to become an engineer. And later on, I came to the US for a PhD with the dream that I'll be a scientist who brings new innovations in the world. Absolutely fortunate that my first journey in a startup actually gave me a front row seat to exactly that. Because in 13 years, we took a company from 10 people to 1,000 and an idea in a lab to an IPO. And in the process, I got a front row seat for not only scaling, not only building, but scaling R&D, product management, customer success, sales, and even people operations. So I really learned how to build a company from all aspects. And with that, now I am on the journey to start my own venture, and super excited about it again.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing some of your expertise and your journey with us too. So here at Stanford, we are at the cutting edge of pairing leading and emerging research with actionable leadership techniques, practices, mindsets to implement outside of the classroom. Some of you have already mentioned the role of this work in your career. Now, I co-instruct this course, Acting with Power, with Dr. Deborah Gruenfeld. She's a renowned experimental social psychologist who studies power. And Dr. Benoit Monin, he's a professor of psychology and organizational behavior. He focuses on ethics and morality. And an award-winning lecturer, Dan Klein, from the Department of Theater and Performance Studies. And we use these performance techniques paired with the social sciences to help students navigate challenging interpersonal power dynamics and show up fully, effectively in these leadership roles. My first question for you, having heard about your expertise and your journey, is inspired by that evolution that we witness as a teaching team in our MBA and executive students in class. We see this evolution of their personal style, their performance, how they're showing up in their roles and the range that they're bringing to their roles. And they share about their experiences back on the ground. I wonder about you, what experiences have shaped your own personal leadership style, how you show up in these leadership roles as they've evolved? Disha, maybe would you kick us off? Sure.
I wish I had gone to Stanford sooner is what I'm going to start out by saying. Having gone through the program in 21, after going through the startup journey, I learned, just observing all the people you're talking about and many more at Stanford, the humility of, the wisdom around leadership, that it's all about a continuous process of learning. It's not that you are one and done. It evolves, and honestly, the learnings are more about yourself than anything else, because as you change is when you become a better leader and build muscles that make you adapt to the environment as it's changing around you. And to put this in context, I'm going to give you an example of like a before. I actually experienced this. I went through some what I call transformative experiences in my journey that helped me start thinking about leadership from a new light. So one of them, my first, was when I became a manager for the first time. I was an individual contributor, scientist in the lab. You're working with numbers and experiments. Everything is pretty defined. And then I was put in the position of building the first customer success team for the company. And this is like a regionally distributed team of individuals. And I'm going to quote my manager's words. He said, your job is to go clone yourself across the country. And so as an engineer, thinking simply, I was like, yeah, I'm on a mission to clone myself. And a lot of people who've gone through this, especially in engineers, this is a way we think, is what I think a lot of engineers have spoken to. When you start out being a manager, life's frustrating. People can't do the work as fast as you can. They can't do it better than you. It's just constantly that battle with yourself. And I had the same struggles. I was in flights all the time because it's a customer success role. I have a child, like a 5-year-old at home. And I was like constantly struggling and frustrated, unhappy. And somebody at work actually gently suggested a coach. And that changed my life. I call her my karmic intervention even today. And that's why I say I wish I'd gone to Stanford, because I know if you go through a lot of the great courses that are offered here, I wouldn't have had to go through the hard learning process. But in 12 months from there, I had learned that I had it all wrong. And again, when I was suggested getting a coach, I'd been like, why do I need a coach? But I learned through the process. And the biggest thing I realized is I had managed to somehow instinctively hire a very diverse team of individuals from different backgrounds. All I had to do was find their hidden talent and help them unleash that. I didn't have to tell them to behave a certain way. In 12 months, that team did not need me anymore. They were collaborating, the camaraderie together, and the diverse skill set was helping them solve every problem they could in the team, in the company. So that journey taught me, and that's my take on leadership now. One, my success is not what I get done, what people who I work with, what are they able to do beyond what they imagined is what my success is driven by. And I believe in, the Simon Sinek philosophy of starting with the why. I believe in getting to know people on a psychological, like who they are, why they are, who they are, and then effectively communicating from there. That doesn't mean I don't give them authentic, honest opinions. It's just I communicate effectively after I learned that again at Stanford more than anything else, honestly. And vulnerability, it's my secret weapon. I'm not afraid to bare my heart. So that's what I would say. I'd love to hear from Vanessa or Hazel as to what their experiences have been, given they come from a different background.
Yeah, I can follow. Yes. Okay, good. Sorry. No, I so much agree with you, Disha, because my experience is that I grew up in Bolivia, but my parents were from Europe. I was going to an international school, so my whole life has been kind of like in a setup where everything is a bit foreign to you, like you are not rooted to anything, which is good and is bad. But I will talk about the good about it, is that you have to become so much more resourceful. You have to really watch out on what are the unspoken rules, what are the unspoken lines of, what is happening, because it's everything like so subtle in many ways. And also, like, really like team up with my local classmates or friends that, had more rooted family to like, what is happening here, or like, how should I read this? Like always trying to like understand from different perspectives on, my own family values and our own direction, but also very close to what is happening, with my life and my surrounding. So I think like I bring this like to my professional life because of, working in many countries with expat roles. This becomes almost like the first thing that you have to do. It's like really understanding what are the culture values, what are the culture nuances, what does people trick when it comes to work environment, work results, KPIs, and everything. But at the end, the first job, like really like to have, as you were discussing, and key performing team and a happy team is to really know who are they behind the title, who are they behind the desk. And I think if I have like a simple advice or like what worked for me is like, when I got my first leadership role was like, take everyone for, coffee, lunch, and try to open up as much as they wanted or as much as I felt I could do it. But just to kind of not talk about the results, not talking about what are you, what are you doing? More like, who are you? What are your strengths? How can we work together? And I think that gave a lot of confidence to the team members, that they could, that there could be some chance that I could be good for them. And also gave me some confidence to myself that, I just want to approach it as I will do it in any other situation. Yes, so that's my story. And how about you, Hazel? Sorry to interrupting you before. I was too eager.
No worry. Yeah, thank you for sharing all the experience. Yeah, I think it's very hard to pinpoint which experience have shaped my leadership style. I would think it's more a combination of the experience has provided a valuable insight and a lesson over the years. Actually, when I started the business, I signed a program. It's from the Darren Hardy's Leadership Mentor Program. I listened his 5-minute daily message about leadership every day for many years. Then I signed up an instant productivity training program. And later on day, I found the leadership coach from the Betters Up. And also the most useful journal is went to the Stanford Executive Program. And also, I always have the mentor from one of the top executive. They are in the top executive position for many years. For all those people, I can always go to ask for the advice. So with this combined experience, really makes me and learned the important as leadership, such as communication, decision-making, teamwork, leading by example. So I think the combination of this experience along with a continuous learning that Disha also mentioned, I think the continually learning and self-reflection has really shaped into the leader I am today. I believe leadership is really a journey of growth. And I'm really committed to continuously evolving and improving as a leader. Thank you.
Thank you, each of you. I do want to acknowledge that we're here as women talking about leadership in these roles, and gender is a factor, of course, in this growth that you've seen. Maybe you're aware 3 years ago, it was the World Economic Forum predicted that to achieve gender parity, it would take 100 years. And a recent report that just came out here in 2023 has revised that number to 131. And we are seeing through the pandemic, after the pandemic, we're facing a global backslide in workplace gender equity. Women account for I think it is 42% of the workforce. But the proportion of women in senior leadership roles, VPs, directors, C-suite, that's sunk by 10% over that period. So we were on a different path, and we were increasing that representation by about 1% every year until it started reversing. And women remain underrepresented in management positions, in executive education, leadership programs. There are obvious benefits to narrowing the gender gap. According to the IMF, just a few of these benefits include a bigger boost to growth, higher productivity, and even, wait for it, higher male incomes too. So we know this, we all know that it's bad for the bottom line financially in terms of, but also in terms of culture and broader society. But your careers are thriving. And what do you see now, looking back, or what you're observing right now at work? What do you see as the most significant barriers for women leaders? Let's just hear very briefly from each of you. What barriers do you see?
Oh, actually, I feel there's many, especially when I'm the minority and I'm in the very man-dominated industry. Can see so many barriers. However, I believe the gender bias is the most significant barriers for the woman leader. I think the gender bias lead to the perception that a woman should primarily focus on the family, the household responsibility, and caring for the children. And women leader often facing, like when I go out business, I always receive the question, how do you balance the worker, the family, the personal life? Be honest, I think it's so hard to find the balance. It's almost impossible to find the balance. You only pick your priority. So additionally, this is societal expectation regarding the gender role is really discourage women from pursue the leadership role. So I really hope that gender bias can be changed eventually one day. How about Vanessa?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think I kind of looking back, I think the hardest time of my career is when you are having kids and still having working responsibility. You have to travel overseas and you still want, you have energy, you want to work, you want to deliver. I mean, you are not only a mom, you are also many other roles, and you want to fulfill all the boxes in the way that feels good for you. But those years can be really tough, and I think that's also some of the years where many women stay behind because it can be too much, and then you don't, or you don't get the support, or like can be many reasons. So I would say, if I could kind of support more women that are in this situation, to give advice, to coach, don't give up, or give up in areas that that you can come back later. I think that's something that I would like to do more, because I remember those years being challenging physically and mentally, and you still, as I mentioned, want to deliver. My kids are a bit older, and that comes with other challenges as well. But I think when they were younger, that was one of the biggest barriers on, as you were saying, like balancing. I mean, that's a tough one. And I guess, so getting support from a family, organizing a support system, it's very important in whatever country you are. I think in my case, especially living in a foreign country, that became crucial if I wanted to devote myself into the executive roles.
Mm. Thanks, Vanessa. Disha, anything on that? Do you see any barriers, or what barriers do you see?
Oh, plenty. I think all the ones that you listed, I mean, I've seen biases, judgments, the pressure of social response. I mean, the social thread of responsibilities where women, take on a lot more at the household front, traditionally, all of the above. There's just a long list. And of course, lots of research now highlighting the issues that we face collectively. But this is where I'm sort of wired to think about everything as a problem and how you bring about change or how you solve things. And Stanford, one of the things, the moment of clarity for me was, as a leaders, we are taught to focus on what we can control, because crisis is going to be the reality of our lives all the time, all around us. So my take on this is, the biggest thing that's stopping us is us. And I don't mean it that we're not doing enough. I mean that let's not be, I walked into the workforce being very naive about, things will play out to the best if I bring my 100% to work and work hard. And I did, and a lot of good happened. But what I missed, and what we all own, is building that toolkit. We are dealing with the biggest societal change. And I can see the change happening in my son at 10 years old, because he knows mama has to work and adjust to it from when he was 6 weeks old. So it's going to happen over time. How do we bring it about sooner is the toolkit we prepare, whether it's acting with power, your class tells us how to show up, negotiation, networking, brand building, all those are things we need to do consciously, because that's what the men around us are doing. And we create that environment where we stand up for each other. That's the toughest of the things to do. Honestly, allyship is not easy, because you could sometimes be sticking out your neck in a situation that's not warranted. But I think that's what it's going to take for us to come together and own this and say, yes, we're going to change what's happening. So that's how I feel about it.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you, each of you, for sharing your perspective on that. Yeah, that narrow expectation, the narrow path, the expectation for people in leadership roles. Men too face penalties for when they behave outside of those expected roles as well. But we see those expectations playing a big part in narrowing the range of how we're showing up. We often look at the performance of power in class. I'm just going back to the work that I do with students anyway. We look at calibrating the signals of power, the performance of power, signals of powering up and powering down, warming up and cooling off, how the situation, those circumstances, the realities of society, for instance, but also the specifics of the circumstances in the moment, the interpersonal dynamics, how your own internal state impacts how you show up. I'm wondering, since it's come up in comments and questions, I'm wondering if you've ever felt a mismatch between that internal experience of your performance and the way you're showing up or perceived to be showing up. An example of this sometimes people will talk about is imposter syndrome. If you faced this or other mismatches in that calibration, I'm wondering if you'd share briefly how you navigated through it or overcame it, or what it was like. If it doesn't resonate, we can just move on.
Yeah, if you want, I can share. This happened to me just before SEP. The situation was that, I was given a completely new responsibility. completely out of, my knowledge, let's say, my expertise. And then on top of that, a new team with new skill sets to kind of accomplish this mission. And then on top of that, really like tough selling pressure. So you have like, a lot of newness from the different ends that came together. And what happened there, I felt like it was too much to start with. And also I wanted to do a really good job because I was in love, and like I really love the scope and the mission at hand. But I was, I was having self-doubts. I was feeling like, I'm not good enough. And when are we gonna see results? And how do I really bring the best of the team and the results together? So it was really like intense. I would say like here and here, like both sides were like, struggling and talking to each other and fighting to each other. And that's the time I really got a better up coach from the Stanford program. And that was really, really helpful because it was someone, very senior, very knowledgeable, and really helped me to lift myself up and really like celebrate the little things that was, my team and myself were doing, rather than just focusing on all the bads that you are doing. Like don't focus on you didn't do this or this is not good enough. What are you doing that is a little bit better, and that you can write some, success diary or success achievements every Friday at the end of the week, so that I guess your confidence and your mood and your energy can be increase. So I think that was a really good way. And then finally, being in SEP gave me all the confidence I was needing. And since being in SEP, I have to say I haven't felt this any longer, which I'm very happy that we can approach situations with confidence, even we don't know it all the time and we don't have the answer all the time. It's more about, focusing being than doing, especially at the beginning when it's a very large and important task.
I think, I think I can share a little bit here. I feel that mismatch actually is a very normal phenomenon, but I do not have like a really significant experience with imposter syndrome. I found, it's again, continuous learning and thinking support. I think they are the very important way to gain the confidence and competence. When I start my business, I made a commitment on ongoing learning and professional development. So this includes I participate many leadership program and dedicate a significant time to learning the new skill and knowledge. These efforts is not only just to boost my confidence, but also I think provide a tangible evidence of my growth. And in the situation, sometimes when I doubt myself, I always go to my leadership coach, go to my mentor, and also go to my supporting system, ask for the advice and ask for the support, and they lift me up, and also then can turn to the doubt to the positive motivation to keep moving on. And the last thing I want to mention is for self-reflection. I think it's very important. In that way, always remind yourself what's your achievement, remind yourself the hard work, the skill, the knowledge you have, and that will be maintain the confidence in my abilities. So I would say, when you have doubt yourself, find the support, try to overcome, turn to the doubt to the positive.
Thank you. Love that other perspective, right? So we all have very different experiences, exposures, beliefs that we're bringing in, practices. Love it. Disha, anything to add or?
I
Trisha, if
You
not,
know,
we
I
can.
have to, one thing I would say is what Vanessa said, I'm gonna agree with that 100%. I did go through the journey of imposter syndrome every now and then. And most of the time my attitude was, I'm gonna get through this, and you just work your way through figuring things out and one small step at a time. But after Stanford, I am not as scared of feeling it. And I've taken on the biggest step ever now because I'm jumping into starting something on my own. It's the most nebulous territory I've ever been in. But one thing, other than, of course, the great foundational courses that we had, was I have my cohort, my classmates, and we have this bond where they come from different backgrounds, and just it's like your board of advisors with different skill set, and when you feel in doubt, they are there to support you. And that's what is that implicit takeaway from this program that is just the strongest thing I've got after I finished it. So that's how I feel about it today.
Thank you. Thank you. I wonder if we could move toward the actions here and the advice. Some of you've already shared. I think it was Vanessa. You said, my advice would be to take everyone to coffee. Who are they as people? Who are they as people? In one phrase like that, and that can stand if you wanted to, or maybe there's more. If there is one phrase that you have for emerging leaders, someone who's approaching a leadership role for the first time, maybe it's a big role, or it's their first time leading people, leading a team. What's some advice that you would give them? A couple of phrases of advice for them from each of you. Vanessa, I'll start with you. You can sit on that one if you want to, or add more.
Yeah, I actually have someone in my team who is in that process, a great individual contributor, amazing to work with, and always doing the extra mile. So and not only for that, so she's also moving into a new leadership role. And the advice I'm collecting some of my peers, so like they can also talk to her and give her experiences around what are the do's and don'ts of your first leadership role, so that this colleague of mine can get more information, and also don't feel alone that it needs to be perfect, and I can also learn from best practices from others. I guess the one simple advice will work on psychology. I mean, work on, again, on the person, that they are really understand what are their strengths, and how does it balance with you as a team, as a leader, so that you can really know how do you use each other and deliver and work and have fun together.
That's a really good advice. So I have two daughters, both of them, they are in the college, they are in the major of the business and marketing and entrepreneur, and they will be the future woman leader. So I always tell them, that's something I really want to share here, is I always tell them, love and care for yourself, both physically and emotionally, and always put yourself as a priority. Only when you can take care of yourself, you can take care of your team. And very important, you need, as a women leader, you need to try to establish a very strong support network, supporting team around you. And always remember, invest yourself as a priority. Dedicate yourself to continuously learning. I always want to emphasize continuously learning and growth as you embark on your leadership journey.
That's a brilliant advice. I even today forget to put on my oxygen mask first all the time. So I have to remember that one. And I, just going back to what I had said previously, I mean, there are multiple aspects. It's a constant process of learning. But if I had to put one phrase around how I feel about leadership, and what I would tell somebody who's starting out is, have the courage to lead with your heart. It takes a lot to do it. It's easier said than done, and you will need courage to do it, but that's the way to lead if you can.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you'd mentioned vulnerability earlier, and I'm seeing the theme. Thanks, Disha. So we know that actions in organizations, actions in our behavior, actions and budgets are needed to protect underrepresented leaders. And there are a few activities that are particularly useful. I'm also interested in hearing others that you've observed. We know that leadership programs that are like SEP are programs designed specifically for women, are designed to improve those capabilities and networks, that those address the leadership growth. They also strengthen the confidence, a theme that you've brought up, and they demonstrate commitment. They demonstrate the organization's commitment to retaining and developing female talent. We also see the second thing is that career mobility interventions that include championing women, not sponsoring women. So that's the active use of tools, air cover, sharing power, providing opportunities, not just a more passive mentoring or advice giving, although we all need this advice that you've shared. And increasing that, the third thing, increasing that representation that we see, the visibility of the talent is important. I have a champion, a sponsor, two very different, unique humans who have helped me, continue to help me develop and learn and grow, but also will provide those opportunities to. I'm wondering, what's an example of a time, or is there somebody, a champion, a sponsor in your career, maybe early on or maybe now, or a way that you show up for somebody? I know, Vanessa, you mentioned a leader that you're bringing up. What's an example of a champion, a sponsor, or a way that you've served in this role? Do you have any specific actionables that we can share with our audience? Examples of what that looks like?
Actually, okay, I can share that part. I think it's very lucky for Melissa, for anyone who has this formal champion or sponsor, to support them during their career. I don't have like really formal champion or sponsor in my career. However, I have a very strong supporting system during my professional growth. I'm a part of the CEO group. Like there's about 10 CEO, they are coming from the different industry. And we meet once every month, and we share the resource, and also we exchange the business insights. And also I belong to a women's circle, consists of the fellow alumni from the Stanford Executive Program. And in that women's circle, we meet once a month too, and we support each other in personal and business matter. So I think for this kind of supporting group, it's really helping mentorship, and also we learn from each other, we lift each other, and we share the resources and offer assistance to each other. That it's not a formal, but I think that a supporting system is really helped me a lot, provide a very, very valuable insight to my career. At the same time, you know, we are working on the project. It's a help the young women leader who is looking to be the entrepreneur. We share with them all our knowledge, our skill, and our experience, and really help them to, you know, I wish when I start a business, I wish there's this kind of group can give me a little bit of advice, and that can really, you know, so that's why our goal is like, we want to help those young women leaders and achieve their dream, and empower the next generation of the women leaders. So if any of the one, I will be, you know, who want some advice or share the experience, I will be very happy to open that conversation.
Thanks, Hazel.
How about Disha?
I can vouch for the women's leadership circles for sure, like that we have through Stanford. That is a great community. And I, like I said previously, I believe in building now an advisory network of people who can support me on different aspects. But through my early career, I was lucky. I had multiple champions. and sponsors at different stages. That's how I moved, to these extremely different functional roles. I think the reason that happened for me more than my knowledge power was my relationship power. Again, it was because I was willing to build those relationships. A lot of them were men, older men, but they were willing to help me around, and they saw the potential of me doing the next. The interesting part is it all came to a point where my biggest champions and sponsors started doubting me. And it was after I had my kid. I came back to work in 6 weeks, and I don't know if doubt's the right word, because it was a mix of some were genuinely concerned that you should be spending time with your child. And the others were like, do you really have it in you to do it? Like, do you, as a mother, aren't your priorities divided? Like, and these are just, this is an underlying bias that even existed in my family. So I don't even know if I want to blame somebody for it. It's so strong, it exists all around us. There was one woman, she was my manager, luckily at the time, who has 3 kids, and she stood there like a rock for me. So she was like that buffer between, and it only takes a couple of months for a mother to adjust to the new reality and be back because my work was my passion, it still is. But she was the one who got it and stood as a rock. So my one piece of advice is have those women in your network. You will need them at some point or the other. No matter how many men are on your side, I don't blame them. It's just something they will not ever be able to empathize with. You need women to know what you're going through at different stages, and you want that person on your side.
Thank you.
Wow. Very powerful, Disha. I almost forget what was the question. I was so much into your story. It was really good.
We were looking for examples of an active sponsorship. Hazel provided some great examples of how she's showing up as a sponsor, mentor, but also looking for finding support. So an example of an active sponsorship or a champion in your career that you had or are.
I have a bit of hard time to really like picture one person.
Yeah.
I think also a little bit like Disha. It has been different kind of actors, let's say, different parts of my career. At the beginning, there was some type of support system. Then later there were others. But what I can say, there are 2 that kind of remain very strong. One is my husband, who's always with me and supporting me in the good and bad times. And I think that's something that it's not work related, but that's why I think it's for me, like family and work become so, it's you, that's who you are. So I think he has been a very strong ambassador of me having fun at work and, doing what I have to do without concerning about male or female. And that I think has been a great example. And then the other one that I think I'm trying to do, I'm also part of the SEED Stanford program, where we do consulting and coaching for entrepreneurs in Africa and India. And that's also a way for me, like not direct coaching, but kind of passing the knowledge and passing other areas of, female leadership and experience overall, to areas or like exposed to other areas that I wouldn't be otherwise, not for work, not for personal, and then the otherwise for them. So I think, so that's one of, a bit more diverse support group where I have joined recently.
Thank you. And these are formal. They show up in formal and informal ways. So these strategies and our ways to give back and support those coming up after us. There's also a critical need for policies to be changed, for policies to support women in organizations, to support underrepresented leaders. These critical policies within the organization that will then affect behavior. So it's 2 parts. I'm wondering, since in our last few minutes together, if you would share, I know some of you have shared about the formal ways that you've and informal ways that you show up for each other and your people. How have you invested in your career? So there are people who've supported you, and what are some of the ways? You've mentioned a few, but I'm wondering if you could share more. That's a question that we had from the Q&A. We're not going to be able to get to all the questions. There are so many great questions, but this how do you invest in your career is coming up. That's the first one. There are one or two others. Is anybody willing to start us off?
I can start off with this one. So in terms of, I think, but the biggest investments I have done in my career along the journey has been, first of all, like, what Hazel had said previously, to remember to put on my oxygen mask. And then when I step back and I think about it, I'm like, okay, I need this program or this approach to take that next step in my career. And the biggest one was the Stanford program for me. It also happened at a time where I needed that the most in terms of making the transition. And that is what I would call, like, it's on us to stop and think about what we need next. And I think Stanford has been my biggest investment so far in my career.
Do you mind, can we pause there just for a second, since obviously all three of you are alums, and this other question came in that's related, so we can go back to broad investment, but there was a question too, why did you choose to take this program at Stanford? If there was an inciting moment. Dishy, you can continue, or I'm wondering about that. So those are two kind of related questions that have come in.
The focus.
Why this one?
Yeah. Stanford, instinctively the program and the distribution of what was going to be the alumni is actually, what they had gone through and their experiences. It spoke to me more because it has a very strong entrepreneurship mindset. And when I entered the program, I entered with that ambition of, okay, when I start on my own, I should have the framework or toolkit. What I learned from the program, though, was honestly a game changer in terms of how to discover myself and resiliency, like literally everything about putting your oxygen mask to become a better leader, which I had not realized. But that was what drew me to Stanford.
Needing the oxygen, needing to breathe.
Yes.
Hazel, Vanessa, either of those questions, we'd love to hear your insight.
Okay, yeah. As Disha mentioned, also Stanford Executive is my biggest investment too, because for me to really leave the company for 8 weeks and fully dedicated to in that campus, that's a big investment. But I really cherish that opportunity. Invest on yourself. Invest on myself. It's always a priority in my life. I enrolled a lot of leadership program, include that executive program. And also I have the leadership coach, I have the mentor. And I think for all of those programs, it's really provided me the very valuable knowledge and skills to contribute to my career growth. And another investigator, I really delegate all my work at home. That allow me to free up my time to really focus on the business, and also freed up my time to have time to study, exercising, do the gardening, and spend quality time with kids, and then to minimize your stress. And also I invest heavily on the travel. I really think the travel can really broaden my perspective and enrich my understanding of the different culture, different marketing, especially when I'm expanding my business horizontal. So the Stanford Executive Program really helped me, the connection. I learned a lot of classmates. They come from all different industry. So I learned the finance, the expert, and the technology, and the human resource, and it's from all different industry. That network is so powerful, and that come to be my mental, huge mentorship support. So now if I have any question in the business, in the personal, I just throw out the question, and you can receive all the professional, advice. So I really highly recommend it.
Thank you. Vanessa?
Yes, for me, it was, I was about to finish an executive MBA in a renowned business school back in China. It was my graduation day, and I really came up to realize that I really want to keep studying. It's really on me. I remember when I was young, people say you're too curious, you're too curious. But over time, I realized that being curious is actually good. I mean, it doesn't have to be bad, and that has kind of be a bit of feel when you have that curiosity, then you're always looking into what can I do next, what can I do, what can I learn next. So it was after that last day that I realized I want to go to Stanford, where it can give me another perspective of the global, of the world, having the China or Asia perspective. I felt like I want to see how is the other part of the world, in a renowned institution like Stanford, thinking and learning and teaching and kind of fostering the future for leaders overall. So that was a big decision point for myself, but also have to be honest, I also kind of did it for to show, or to be a role model to my kids, to show you don't have to be 18 years old to go to university. I mean, that this can be a lifelong thing, and you don't have to be mommy's in university, what's wrong? No, on the contrary, be proud, and something that it's a new reality, and accept it and love it and embrace it, and hopefully when they grow up they also will be Stanford alumni.
Oh, one thing I want to add, actually, it's not just only the executive program, Stanford Executive Program, the Stanford University, the Women Entrepreneur Leadership Program is also awesome. That's the reason, in 2018, I was invited to participate in that program. That really opened my eyes, so that's why for me to think more long-term, the education program. So there is a multiple program, which I really think of very awesome Stanford offered.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I know there's some questions about resources. We'll make those available to the best of our ability, any supporting materials. There was a question that I noticed. I wish we could get to them all, that I'm not going to put you on the spot for, but perhaps we'll leave each of you with as just a prompt to inspire, to share maybe with somebody else in your life, or with us on social media or something, I don't know. Somebody asked, what is the greatest joy that you derive from your career? My greatest joy is being in classroom with students and in conversation with students ever after. So I'm so grateful to each of you for giving me this chance to hear your perspectives, to connect with you. Thank you, Hazel. Thank you, Disha. Thank you, Vanessa. I'm very, very grateful. And I really look forward to staying in touch. Thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure to share this time with you. And please, let's all stay in touch. Angela, I'll turn it over to you, but thank you, Hazel. Thank you, Disha. Thank you, Vanessa. We're very grateful for your time and expertise.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for being an amazing moderator. I just really enjoyed your time today and this amazing panel. Disha, Hazel, and Vanessa for representing our Stanford Executive Program alumni. Thank you so much. You were all just inspiring for all of us to experience today. We also thank all of you, our audience, that joined us today and have been part of engaging with us for the last hour. We're so excited to see that engagement, and that we hope that you continue to engage with us in the future. We've added a slide here, and in the link you'll see a way in which you can learn more about Stanford Executive Programs here at the Business School. And we will also be following up as best we can with all of those resources and all the questions that we didn't get to today. So thank you again. Thank you again to our panel and moderator, and we hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Thank you for spending the time with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.